Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan, and I'm
Callum.
joined by Callum. How you going, Callum?
Not bad. How are you?
Good, thank you. We hope to be joined by at least James soon on in the show, but we might as well kick it off. So we've got a little bit to discuss. It's our big Cobra Kai episode, and also hopefully joined by Matt as well, because he is a big Cobra Kai fan. But we're going to start off with talking about Disney Star. So we are fairly big fans of Disney Plus at this point, the streaming service. But the problem with Disney Star is that it's basically Hulu. For viewers, listeners who aren't aware, Hulu is an American streaming service owned basically by Disney. And it's where all the sort of, we'll call it mature content that Disney produces goes to in America. And Japan also has Hulu, but it's a weird limited content. Anywho, we are allegedly getting what effectively is Hulu in Australia in the form of Disney Star. The only problem is I'm worried about Disney Star.
Yeah, of course.
And James is just walking in.
Sorry, a bit of a technical problem with the studio today.
No technical problems.
No, with the door. But it's all solved now. I'm sorry, Nathan. Can you please continue?
Yeah, no, that's all right. So basically, we're getting Hulu in Australia by the way of Disney Star.
Yeah.
Now, the only problem is I'm apprehensive because we look at Binge, right? HBO Max came to Australia as Binge. How you going, James?
Good.
We're now joined by James.
Is my mic on? My mic's still on.
No, not yet.
Sorry about
How
that.
you
We're
going, how you
joined
going,
by
James?
James
Okay.
in the studio.
Can you
James
hear
just
me?
ran into the studio.
Okay. Yeah. Can you hear me now? Okay, that sounds good.
Alrighty.
Yeah, so HBO Max came to Australia in the form of Binge, but of course, because we're in Australia, it's more
Yeah.
complicated than just having a service be rolled
no,
out.
but it isn't. It shouldn't be that complicated, because what I was going to complain about Binge is, we got all the normal HBO stuff.
Yeah.
But allegedly, like, all this HBO Max original content is getting produced, and we're getting none of it.
That's right.
No.
Like, we got like one or two shows. We got Raised by Wolves, and like one other thing. But 90% of the HBO Max original content has not come to Australia in Binge, and Binge has the rights to it.
Yeah.
So this is the problem I'm
Well,
going
it's
to
the
see.
Murdoch problem, isn't it?
No, but
Yeah.
it's not even the Murdoch problem. It's just whoever runs Binge is choosing
Yeah.
not to. I know Murdoch
It's-
owns it, but they're choosing not to.
It's what we talked about when it first came out, or before it even came out, where Foxtel has the rights, but they choose or whatever
But this
not
content
to
isn't-
show that content.
The content isn't even going on to regular Foxtel.
Yeah, that's the point though. They had the rights.
That's
to,
what I'm saying, though.
They
Yeah.
had the rights to Arrested Development, and they
Yeah.
just they wouldn't air it.
That was well before
Yeah.
Binge
yeah,
was
that's
even
my point.
a-
It seems to be a culture thing for Foxtel,
Yeah.
where they just like it doesn't really
But
bother
then
them.
why roll out Binge as,
But-
under the rug HBO Max?
Oh no, because they had to. Remember, it was the
yeah,
it was
I know.
the-
I know. We had a whole hypothesis. It's a contract
yeah,
deal with
they
HBO.
they probably just didn't want to lose the rights to that content.
Yeah. No. The rights issues in Australia are ridiculous. And it's a thing where even when we think we have the opportunity to see things, with Binge being the Australian equivalent of HBO Max, they, as usual,
Short changes.
shortchange us. Now, I know rights issues are a mess, but in this case, I
It's
don't
not,
think it's
right?
rights
Because it's
issues.
HBO Max, and
Because
it
just
hasn't
that-
been rolled out
yeah.
anywhere
Yeah.
else.
It's just
And-
the Murdoch culture of complacency.
And we know for a fact that the old DC movies are all on Binge. And all the old Warner Brothers movies are all on Binge. And yet when Wonder Woman 1984 came out on streaming
in
and
America.
theaters at the same time in America,
yeah, we
Just
understood
like
it.
the-
I assumed
Yeah.
we would get it on Binge
So did we actually.
and cinemas at the same time. And that wasn't the case, apparently.
Yeah,
no,
no.
and it obviously it leads to a larger argument about piracy in Australia, because if they're going to do this, they can't complain about people just downloading the movie.
Yeah. Well, that was my next point, is yet again, we get shortchanged in Australia, and we are forced to sail the seven seas or go to a theatre during a time where it is dangerous
It's
to
not
go
as-
to a
it's like-
theatre.
it's not as bad as it used to be now, but I'm still
Yeah, but
uncomfortable doing
like-
it.
Yeah,
In a
exactly.
sense, like
You shouldn't feel uncomfortable going to see a movie, and like here we're okay now, but like there's been more outbreaks in Sydney, and there will continue to be more outbreaks everywhere for the foreseeable future, even after the vaccine rollout.
Yeah, I think it'll take probably a couple of years before we're back to normal.
Yeah.
And when I say normal, I mean like it was like a couple of years ago.
Yeah, so, like, because, when they announced that the Warner Brothers movies were going to be on HBO Max streaming and theaters at the same time, I was like, good, we'll hopefully get that on binge. And I wasn't planning on seeing most of those movies anyway, except for like Matrix 4 and what was the other one? One of the other Warner Brothers big releases. Other than those like couple, I was like, I can watch them on binge. I don't.
Yeah.
But now apparently that doesn't seem to be happening.
I mean, we'll have to see, really.
And
oh, look, none of those theater movies are going on binge.
yeah, and
I guarantee
it. I wasn't planning on seeing them at theaters, so now they're on streaming, so I'm not going to see them at all. And I was going to get binge for those movies, but now I'm not.
Yeah.
So they've lost the customer by not doing what they're promising. Now, the only reason they were promising that is because America is such a hellhole that they're kind of forced to.
Yeah, that's true.
And they're only using it as an experiment. They've said that.
Yeah.
They said after this they'll see. But as we've discussed many a time on the show, most movies don't even get proper releases in Australia.
Yeah.
So streaming must be the future for movie watching in Australia, as much as some people might not like it.
Especially for the smaller movies.
Yeah, exactly.
We've talked many times about how we were somehow blessed
Yeah.
to see Mother and
Lady
Lady Bird.
Yeah.
Like that were exceptions to the rule. Generally, as you know, if you live in suburban Melbourne specifically,
Yeah.
it can be hard to find movies you want that aren't the big tentpole films
Yeah.
when they're airing. Which is why we're talking about Disney Star, because that is the Hulu equivalent in Australia. But just because if you've ever used Hulu, you know that they have a very wide range of content.
It's that Fox Warner Brothers type of outlet.
Yeah.
Like
The thing is, don't get your hopes up just because this is the Hulu equivalent.
I feel like 90% of the stuff on Hulu is not going to be on Star.
We'll probably get roughly 60%.
Yes.
And then and then the remaining 40 will be distributed to different services.
The thing is like right now in like there's going to be a separate issue than binge, right?
Yeah.
Because binge is just Rupert Murdoch or whoever's controlling binge being lazy and saying I'm not going to bother putting this content on binge.
Yeah.
Because they own the rights to it. They just don't do it.
Yeah.
The problem with Disney Star launching is they're they're geeing everybody up, saying that you're getting Disney Stars where all the mature adult content that Disney produces through Fox and everything else it owns, it's coming to Disney Plus. But in Australia, it's probably not because
well,
Disney,
most of that stuff is probably on
licensed
Foxtel,
to Foxtel or Stan,
which should end up on binge, but doesn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm just like I'm excited for Disney Star, but
we're gonna have to wait. We're gonna have to wait and see.
How much are we actually going to get?
Like I said, I reckon 60%. It depends because these things change all the time. Contracts lapse, so I think
it's also
be lucky enough to get FX.
It'll be the same shows that are on all the streaming services that aren't exclusive.
It's also like we live in a world where you can get anything straight away on the internet. So remember like 10 years ago, before streaming was a thing, even longer ago, on like Channel 7 would have ads airing at the same time as the US, and that was a big deal. And now that seems quaint, right? But continually stuff comes on streaming in Australia sometimes months after it's aired in America.
Yeah.
Like, that's not okay.
I mean, we talked about, I don't know if we talked about this on the show last time, but I mentioned to you about how I watched Possessor, and I was really excited because in America, of course, they had their cinema release ages ago, but they also had their renting in America. You can just go onto Neon, the website, and just rent it. Yeah. And I was like, oh, sweet, I wanted to pay for it. I could finally get it. But it's like, sorry, you can't rent this because you're in Australia.
What do you call it? Geo-blocking?
Yeah,
whatever. If you've
technically illegal in Australia.
Yeah, if you've ever gone to YouTube and it says this is not available in your country, that is ridiculous.
Yeah.
That makes no sense in the world we live in.
In Australia, streaming is still a difficult thing.
Yeah.
Because there are some movies that you just can't rent in Australia.
Yeah. And there's no reason for it. I know there's complicated rights issues, but it's no reason for it. In a world where you can type into Google whatever and it comes up,
Yeah.
There's no reason for.
But
We're also joined by Matt in the studio. How you going, Matt?
Good, man. How are you?
Good.
Matty J. Bow, bow, bow.
live in hope. As of right now, this is all speculation.
Yeah, look,
So
it's
we'll
all
live in hope.
it's all us being doom and gloom because rights issues are complicated, basically.
Yeah.
And even as
But
big
it's
as
like-
Disney is,
I was
these-
like, surely Wonder Woman is going to come on binge. That makes sense
That's
because it's
Rupert
coming
being
on
evil.
HBO Max.
that's just
Nah,
or-
keep in mind,
or-
it could
or
be
you know
Warner
what?
Brothers. Warner
Yeah.
Brothers
I
might be
feel like-
saying we
I
can
feel
make
like
more
it's-
money
yeah.
with
I feel
a
like
traditional
Warner's-
release in
Yeah,
Australia.
it's Warner Brothers going, oh, their pandemic is not as bad as the
Yeah,
US
so
pandemic.
We'll make more money on us.
That's
we-
also true.
We'll force people to go out to cinema
But-
to see a movie that
And
wasn't
they
going
did.
to be
but
good.
Australia has one of the highest rates of piracy in the world.
In the
that
world,
they
yeah.
so they should realize that
Yeah, but we've talked about
the
this.
smart people at Warner Brothers should realize if
We've-
there is an alternative
We've
to
talked.
paying for
We've
it,
talked
people will
about.
take it.
We've talked about this many
I'm not
a time.
defending piracy.
No,
I'm just
yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
They look at it and they say Australia has high piracy rates, and instead of going, something's wrong, maybe we need to have more availability, have better pricing.
Exactly.
No, what they do is go, those people are criminals.
It's different. It's different if my only pirating option for whatever movie is a cam with a guy standing up and going to the toilet halfway through
Yeah.
and making lots of noise. But it's like when you're giving people
Yeah.
the option to illegally download a
Exactly.
4K high dynamic range Dolby Vision, all the bells and whistles copy of the movie. Why
Yeah.
are they going to pay $25 to see it in the theater?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Exactly, like the fact that there is streaming, like I just said, there's no excuse for in this
No.
day and age of
Um,
streaming and the internet.
It's ridiculous. And circling back to Disney Star, like I'm cautiously excited,
Yeah.
but I just think
Yeah.
due to complicated rights issues and legalese and everything else,
Yeah,
I'm not that confident in
Well,
it.
look,
No, you go.
I personally consider Binge a pretty successful launch. It doesn't have everything, but at the same time, due to the ecosystem we live in, we never. If you listen to us talking about it on the show,
Yeah.
we never expected it to have everything.
as much
So
as much as I'm complaining, it is worth it just for the HBO stuff.
It is,
yeah,
but
and
it's-
they have the weekly releases uploaded pretty quickly.
Yeah,
So I think that Binge was okay. Well, hopefully they take the same care with Star that they did with. Not that they took care of Binge; it's a terribly designed app.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean.
But they lose a lot of points for not having the content that they have the rights for.
yeah.
Yeah, but that's the
Like, there's no excuse.
That's just Australia.
I think yeah,
Like
and I think that's when Star comes out. A lot of the FX stuff, which is on Foxtel, which then theoretically should be on Binge.
look. Hopefully Disney pulls a Vader and being like, "Pray I do not alter the contract."
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they just like put it all on anyway.
Well, that
'cause
was your
they have the most lawyers.
that was your theory as to why Binge exists in the first place.
Well, no, my
because
theory of
HBO
Binge
Max is
'cause
coming out, and they're like,
HBO was like, "Look,
we
we want a
better do
streaming
something."
service. If you're not going to play ball after the contract's ended, we'll launch full
Yeah.
show." Yeah, because HBO has that kind of power, right?
It's a
Because
pretty
that's why
credible
Foxtel
threat.
exists almost.
It's a credible
Sports
threat.
and HBO.
yeah,
Anyway, yeah. Moving on. Well, look, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
I believe it gets rolled out next month. So
it's pretty soon.
Yeah.
February 29th.
Yeah, so keep an eye out. Your Disney Plus subscription will probably increase
Oh,
by
it's worth-
$3.
It's increasing to $12 a month,
Yeah.
which is still worth it for what
Which is
you get
less
at the
than
moment.
Netflix
Yeah,
and
still-
Yeah,
it's
so
still-
yeah.
by a large margin.
Yeah, if it does
I
have
mean,
all the Foxtel,
yeah.
Keep an eye out.
How much
Fox
is Netflix
stuff.
these days?
Like $18 a month for the 3 screens and
That's
the
for the
4K.
that's
I've
for
been,
the
I've been leasing off my
4K.
system
Yeah.
for too long. I haven't. I've lost track.
And it is Cobra Kai time.
Hell yeah.
Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai. Look, we're in an era of revivals and reboots of old
Yeah.
properties now, and most of the time it doesn't work. But we've talked about this show quite a lot. Cobra Kai is probably the one great exception at the
Yeah.
moment.
It's
It-
outstanding.
yeah.
How good
It's
is it? Yeah.
it's absolutely
In
outstanding.
a world of like reboots, remakes, and all
I
that,
don't think
like,
I've
this
seen
is
one
the
negative
only-
review.
Uh,
I don't think I have.
Okay, so now we have to talk about the fact that it was on YouTube Premium or whatever they were calling it, and that was like their one big show,
Yeah.
and it felt like a Netflix show. It felt like a good streaming show. It felt
Like
like
a premium show, yeah.
yeah. Everything else on YouTube was just
Mm.
kind of
Until-
like not worth.
Very
Until
YouTube,
YouTube
absolutely.
Premium went the way
Yeah.
of everything Google, and
And
they just
so-
cancelled it.
it. All
They're
all
just
of-
like, get rid of all the premium.
Yeah.
Next project.
Experiment's done next.
Google's, it's like they
Yeah.
have the attention span of a 5-year-old when it comes to like rolling out their $1 billion projects.
Yeah, they're like, oh, that didn't work, but like then like we all. So my point is, like, we all started watching it back then.
OG
Like
fans.
so
YouTube days.
yeah. So like I'm gonna put my hipster fedora on.
Yeah.
And
liked
like we
it
liked
before
it
it was
before
cool?
it was cool. So now it's on Netflix, right? They dropped the first two
and
seasons
now
from
everybody's a mega
YouTube,
fan.
and then they dropped the third season. And now, of course, all the normies watch it, right? And all of a sudden, you get the people who are like, it's not that good. I don't know why people. And you get all the clickbait headlines. It's like, this has a serious cultural appropriation problem, and all that crap.
But
And the only reason that's happening is now because it's on Netflix
Yeah.
and everyone can watch it.
And everyone hates Netflix. We
Yeah.
used to talk about like the
It's
best
not that
movies.
everyone hates it. It's just so widely accessible that any idiot can go and watch
yeah.
it now.
This raises the Karate Kid problem too. Like, a lot of these people who are watching Cobra Kai for the first time probably, realistically, they haven't seen the Karate Kid movie.
No, they've seen the Jaden Smith version.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
they've seen the James.
All
Even
that.
worse.
Yeah.
I mean,
Which
look-
is worse than not seeing any at
we
all.
all know about pop culture contrarians anyway.
Yeah.
There's always going to be some guy who even
But
if he
when it
likes
was on YouTube, it was still small enough.
yeah.
That
But like as you said,
it's
now
like
that
only
it's in
the sort of
now that
hardcore
it's
fans are
in the
on
public
board.
domain,
Yeah.
more accessible in the
And
public
now my
domain.
auntie can watch it, and she's like,
Yeah.
"I don't get what all the fuss is about."
No,
and I'm like,
but your auntie probably
"You
didn't
only
really
watched it
care
because
about,
it came up in your Netflix
Netflix,
queue."
yeah.
or your auntie didn't really care about the franchise to begin with. And
No.
it's one of those, you don't need to watch it to understand what's going on, but you get so
I
much
think-
more from it if you're a
Absolutely.
fan of the original
This
movies.
is something I want to talk about with the third season specifically, and it kind of ties into the Mandalorian discussion we had. The further the show goes, the more nostalgia driven it gets, which is not a bad thing, but it's not a good thing.
I mean,
And I feel like because we love the show and we love the mythology of the movies and all that, and all the recurring character, all the actors coming back and all that.
I just love Johnny Lawrence.
Yeah, he's so good. But like the first season
Just
was
wait for Terry Silver, man.
yeah.
I cannot
But see,
wait.
like that's what I'm talking about. Is like from pretty much from season 1, but season 2 definitely. Like we were like, they're gonna get Terry Silver back. They're gonna get Terry. It's gonna be awesome, and we love that. And now that they've set that up for season 4,
Allegedly, fingers crossed.
well, that has to be like there wouldn't be anything else.
But see, I don't think that's
was
a bad
recurring.
thing necessarily.
It's not,
because
no.
because the way they do it's
But-
really clever.
yeah.
And like it's not just like here's
But
a bit
now-
of this person. And
But what I'm saying is the first season, you could definitely get away with not really having watched the movies
Yeah.
or not really caring a lot about the mythology or lore or whatever you want to call it of the movies. But by season 3, it's like you pretty much have to have seen all 3 movies and have to be in tune with like the characters and the actors, and like there's more involvement, which is not a bad thing.
Like,
but
they're not hard to obtain. Like, it's not hard to go and watch
No.
the original trilogy, so it's not that much of a barrier.
No,
But it still is required reading, I guess.
yeah, which like I said, it's not a bad thing, and we love that, and we kept having all our theories about when who's going to come back and when, and it's not a bad thing, but it does, as it further it goes, it does tie into the Mandalorian problem and Star Wars and all
Yeah.
that, where it's like everything's so nostalgia driven now.
well,
I
I'm
think.
not.
Sorry, Callum, go on.
I'm not sure how many seasons they have planned, but
I think they said 6.
yeah.
They-
so
they-
that's what I've heard.
A general
I'm-
road
That
plan
was
of
their
6.
plan, yeah.
I'm assuming
Until Netflix cancels them after
well, yeah,
season
after
4.
yeah. I'm assuming
And
that
then I'll just jump off a bridge. That's it.
I'm assuming that eventually they'll have to create an entirely original scenario. They can't just like ride the coattails of the original.
Well, it's already. They
No, well-
have the events
No, no.
planned. They know how it's going to end.
yeah. I mean, like, I'm saying that I'm sure that once Terry Silver's been disposed of, they'll have they should have an original villain. It shouldn't just be.
Well, it
Are
depends.
they going to bring in Jaden Smith's cameo?
No,
No,
but
they-
No,
we
I'm
did
being serious.
talk-
And like the
we-
new Karate Kid.
We did, yeah, but we did talk
They
when
wouldn't do
season
that.
2 came out. Nathan and I talked about like Hilary Swank just walking through the door and being like, "Hey, what's up?"
She's part of the Miyagi-verse,
'Cause-
like it
yeah.
or not.
Like
Yeah.
at the moment they haven't said it. Like the 4th movie isn't canon, which is good because that's a terrible movie.
No, but it is
But-
canon. The showrunners have said anything that had Miyagi in
Yeah,
it
but
is
in
canon.
in the show,
Yeah,
like
in the show they
It hasn't
haven't
been
referenced
yet.
it
No,
at all.
that's-
So
yeah.
it technically isn't canon at all, and that's good because that movie sucks. But also, it would be kind of awesome if Hilary Swank walked in and her and
Daniel Ford.
Daniel had to like work some
Punch on.
stuff out. Yeah,
Or like she goes to hit
And
him
that-
and he's like all shocked because it's Miyagi-Do.
yeah. Like, and that would lend.
Did you get taught by Chosen?
That would. Who was it, Nathan? Who was it we were talking? Was it Matt? I was talking to someone. I'm like, the Chosen spin-off show.
Yeah, man. Chosen in America.
Yeah,
That is my
that-
spirit.
yeah.
That is my spirit show.
That would be dope.
That'd be the best thing ever.
But yeah, like that would like having that character come back would lend credence to the terribleness of the 4th movie, which you don't want to give that movie any credence at all.
I feel like
but
they can
also,
acknowledge it and not spend a lot of time on it, and it's fine.
It's kind of, but also this is kind of kind of contrary to what I just said about nostalgia being it's getting a bit much now. It's cool that you can continue on with these old characters and these old actors and whatever,
but it's
an
still
old
doing something
storyline
new.
and still do something new. And that's why Cobra Kai is still the best of these types of reboot shows, is because
it's not entirely rooted in nostalgia.
Yeah, the nostalgia is purely just there for character development.
Yeah,
and some of the best character development in this season
it's like
due
a
to
foundation.
nostalgia.
It's not the entirety of the show.
There are moments in the show where it's like, hey, it's that guy, but then that's not in, you know, where if this was Star Wars, that would be the end of it. Oh, hey, it's that guy. Hey, it's the Millennium Falcon. Whereas in Cobra Kai, it's hey, it's that guy. Hey, it's that thing. Now it's going to tie into the story and the characters, and there's going to be history behind it. And Johnny and Daniel are going to have to reconcile with it. It's all about, the whole show is about reconciling with the past and like how you pass that down to
the next generation.
The next generation, yeah.
Like one of the most powerful sort of, I'll say, arcs in this season is when Daniel goes to Japan.
Yeah.
And he's sort of like, he's lost, he's losing his business, he's like relationships in trouble.
Yeah.
And he goes to Japan and he sort of,
I like he goes to Tomy Village and there's like a
KFC
it's all urban.
and a
yeah,
gas.
it's like progress.
But like, I like how he goes there and he has to re-find himself.
Yeah,
That's
and
it.
he has
And-
to connect with, he finds a way to connect with his
Miyagi.
past and Miyagi.
And he has to
Yeah.
level
And he
up by
reads the-
learning new moves.
The reason-
and obviously he has to level up by learning new moves. That shonen thing. Like,
Overnight
there's always a new
thousands.
skill to learn.
The reason I
and he
like
has to read that letter.
the reason I like that part of
was
Daniel's
a good
story
bit.
is because it made me laugh, because I think it's so typical of someone who like Daniel, who believes he has like roots in Japan or whatever, to go back there and expect it to be like rice farms and it's like this old way of living, and he was kind of shocked by modernity.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of fascinating to me, because I'm like, of course it wouldn't be the same. He expects a white man's interpretation of Japan. You know what I mean? So when because it was similar like that when he went there in the 80s. So when he returns, it's that concept of antiquity that
He's
That's
searching for the
definitely-
past.
Yeah.
That's definitely
And
a
then-
part of it. Yeah.
No, I just thought that was interesting. His reaction was, "Oh no, it's being ruined." When
I
he
think-
finds out it wasn't ruined, it revitalized the economy.
Yeah, I mean, the other part of it is that it ties into the tone of the show, which is like more comedic, and it ties into the fact that they filmed it in Atlanta. But yeah, no, that what Callum said definitely. That's why the show never like falls into the trap that it could fall into.
Because he doesn't live in the past; he lives in the present.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I
That
think-
like the whole like when Ali, we're like since season 1, we're like Ali has to come back, Ali has to come back, Ali has to come back, and then she did come back.
But
And
he-
her
Ali,
whole
Ali with an I.
her-
Not confused with Ali with a Y.
yeah, Daniel with an L. Like
Tory
the whole,
with a
Tory
was it
with a
a
Y.
Y.
Yeah. her point in the show, she literally says like you can't live in the past.
Yeah.
Like it's a bit on the nose, but it's like
Well, there's a fan expectation that you'll come back and they might reinvigorate like that
Yeah.
old love arc, whatever. But
I
at
thought
this
they were
point,
going
it's
to do
like
that at one point. I was like,
she
God, I
has
hope
children.
not.
Johnny
Yeah.
has a child. Johnny's got enough on his plate already.
Yeah, he's in a
and she's not
relationship.
interested.
Yeah.
And
One of the mysteries in the show at the moment is who's Tori's dad.
Yeah, it's not mentioned
Mum as
yet.
well.
It's
'cause,
not
like,
mentioned.
'cause,
And you
like,
never see
yeah.
Who's
mum either.
they still haven't brought in Miguel's dad.
Yeah,
'Cause,
but he's meant to be a criminal. He'll come back
But,
into it in a
but
couple.
that's
of
what I was
seasons,
going to
probably.
say is with this they're in
Gets out of the
good
joint.
they're in a good position with the show
There's so many
where
options.
where they literally don't have to actually do any nostalgia stuff
No.
anymore. They could just bring in Miguel's dad as the bad guy, or whatever.
Johnny has to take him down with karate.
Yeah.
I forget which karate. The solution to all life's problems in the bag.
yeah.
The cops don't exist. Just sort your problems out with
Yeah.
karate. It's like if problems get really bad, there's a tournament for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Settle
But,
it.
yeah.
Settle it in the tournament. Season 4. We're
Keep
gonna
up the
settle it in
streets, sell it in the tournament.
Before you get shanked with a glass, a
Yeah.
piece of glass, we'll settle it at the tournament.
But one of the most, I forget if I don't think it was this season, but like one of the more powerful moments in the show is when Daniel realizes that he's now the same age as when he met Miyagi.
Mm.
It was in season 3.
It was in
Yeah.
season 3.
Yeah.
It's just the nostalgia is the foundation, but yeah, they have so many options they can go anywhere they like.
Yeah.
And I also like how the cast is so big, but like it's not bloated.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
like characters that are in season
Also-
1 and 2 haven't been like Stingray, Aisha weren't in season 3.
Oh yeah,
But like the showrunners have said, but they
One
can weave
thing-
them in and
yeah.
out, so not to bloat the
I-
show,
like-
which works.
Stingray not being in the show makes sense because Paul Walter
He's not-
Hauser is blown up now and he's doing movies.
Probably not allowed to
But
be
also-
in a certain
yeah, also-
range of kids.
Yeah, exactly. Also in the show, they're like, oh yeah, he's not allowed anywhere near kids anymore. So I was like, them writing him out made perfect sense.
And it's probably
but
works well.
Aisha just disappearing
Yeah.
and they're
Oh, they
having a
mentioned it
throwaway
once, yeah.
line of like her parents sent her to boarding school. I was like, that's fair enough, but I feel like Samantha didn't really have any moment of her feeling bad, and neither did Miguel.
But that's the other
Like,
side of
there
the
was-
coin.
Like, I felt like if they were going to do that, they should have written a couple more lines for a couple more characters to say, damn,
Even
you know,
shoot
my friend's
something
gone.
in season 2 to use in season 3. If you know your cast is this
Well,
big.
they probably didn't know she was going to leave during season 2 because she was such an important part of season
Yeah.
2.
She got sick or something, didn't she? Or
No, I think the writers were just like, we got so much going on, we
Yeah.
can't really...
So like that's the other side of the coin too. Is
Which,
like,
which is also kind of a good thing because they can just bring her back in
Yeah.
season 4.
but they should have acknowledged her
Yeah,
absence.
they
They should.
should- yeah.
Stingray, like
If you're
he was
gonna-
always a bit creepy and
Yeah.
weird. It's
Yeah.
like not acknowledge him.
Stingray-
That's fine, right?
Writing Stingray out in one line perfectly made sense.
Yeah.
Writing Aisha out in one line didn't make sense.
That's something I had a little bit of an issue with. It's like, especially towards the end of season 2, her, Sam and Aisha were getting like
Something-
friendly
yeah.
again. They were
Yeah.
like, there was
Yeah.
more communication, and then it's just like dead
Gone.
silence, radio silence.
Yeah. Like, if a character like that disappears, you need to put a little bit more work in.
Yeah.
That was my biggest problem
Yeah.
with that. Like,
Yeah, it's a shame
the
that-
fact that they wrote her out, that's disappointing, but okay, fine.
It's a shame they couldn't just do one scene with her and it's like her moving or something.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
but as James said, maybe they didn't know they weren't going to write her in. But then
Yeah,
that's
that's
poor planning.
Yeah, but...
I mean, stuff happens, right? You can't.
I mean, there's so much going on that, like I said, it's not a bad. It's you can't blame him, but also if you're gonna write someone out, that's not the problem. You just have to write them out well, and in that case, I don't think they did the best of job.
One thing I wanted to talk about while it's in my mind for
Yeah.
this season, one of the big themes for me in this season is realizing that you're a failure, and this is Daniel
Yeah.
as well. He's failing his students, right? He's failing his business. He's
Yeah.
not doing too right by his marriage. And all that, that's failure, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's resolving arcs from the second season, of
Yeah.
course, but you look at Johnny as well, it's like, while he helps Miguel, he also realizes that he failed his students through the first and second seasons
Yeah,
because he let the evil that is Kreese in,
yeah,
right? And it's like, so now that those failures are resolved throughout the whole season, as it's like a realignment of your morality compass.
yeah.
Right, and that takes place.
The fear, like not being afraid of fear or failure, is a big motif throughout the whole show.
Yeah. Well,
Especially with Johnny, right? He lost sight of what his karate was.
Yeah.
To quote himself, karate is about being badass, and he kind of lost that. And Kreese kind of subverted that. It's not about being cool so much as it is about being brutal.
Yeah.
And that's like his thing. And he managed to win over the students that way. So Johnny found himself in this situation where he didn't really have anyone, and he had to really, like I said, realign his moral compass. Even Daniel, they had to put aside their differences and find a commonality.
Exactly. Which, in season 2, we're like, Miyagi Kai. There has to be a thing, right? The team up. And it seems like that's, where they're going.
But that's what I really liked.
Miyagi Fang.
Miyagi Fang, that's it, yeah. But even with some of the more minor characters like Hawk, who had that terribly dark arc.
Oh, Binary Brothers back together again.
That's what I was gonna say. It's like you have the really negative transition that Hawk made through seasons 1 and 2 to a point where he breaks Dimitri's arm.
It's the
I think Kreese goes so evil that even the people who are fully on board, like Hawk, is like when they bring his bullies in, and he's like, damn, maybe.
And then Hawk has that.
Are we the baddies?
Are we the baddies? Yeah, Hawk has that moment of clarity.
Yeah.
And so that's what the fascinating thing. It's little things like that. The arcs of even the secondary characters are what makes the show so strong.
Yeah, every character has good
And Dimitri, I will say a callback to season 2 is when Dimitri kicks Hawk into like the glass case.
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah.
They made reference to it at the start of the season too. Like they're like, "Oh, didn't you get kicked into that case?"
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he has that, like I said, Nathan said, he
I
has
was
he has that mad Paul Finch energy.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. We're now joined by Alan. How you going, Alan?
I am good, thank you.
Have you seen Cobra Kai yet?
Yes, I have, but I haven't seen it all.
What use
You had
are
one
Get
job.
out.
Hey,
You were told like a week ago.
I am
Yeah.
a busy man. I'm
Oh
trying to
yeah,
hustle.
where were you today?
Busy doing
I was
nothing.
gambling at the casino.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, so busy.
I have a gambling problem, but I win most of the time, so it's okay.
Is it a problem if you win?
Yeah, is it a problem if you win?
Anyway,
So back to that mad Paul Finch energy. I reckon the actor that plays Dimitri is taking, and the writers are taking mad American Pie energy for Dimitri.
yeah, definitely.
Because now the rumor is much like the American Pie arc of Paul Finch. The rumor on the street is that Dimitri has a big dick.
Yeah.
No, that's actually in the show.
That's canon, yeah.
That's canon. It's just a rumor, but that's the same
No,
exact
that's-
arc as
Does it-
American
yeah.
Pie 1.
It just made me. It's probably
And
just an
he's
Easter
now,
egg. It made me
and
laugh.
they have they look kind of similar, and they're both nerds at heart, but they have this really
No,
big
it's-
street energy going.
it's just an Easter egg.
no,
but
it's funny though.
it makes me laugh.
Well, according to his cast, that's what it says. So
Yeah. And they both win over all the ladies, and it's just like I just really appreciate that sort of that throwback comedy.
Yeah,
Like-
I don't think it's a reference to that.
No,
but
no,
it's,
but it's
his
like-
character,
it's-
yeah, the nerdy
it's
character
funny.
who goes, yeah.
It's not a direct reference. I just like
Yeah.
it.
But tying into what Callum was saying about, like dealing with failure and sort of learning to knowing when you're wrong and so
Especially
on.
when you have a character like Daniel who compares himself directly to Miyagi.
Exactly,
And
yeah.
we didn't see Miyagi's
And-
failures per se.
Exactly, yeah, and Miyagi was pretty
He
much
was like
perfect.
he was like a
in all the old-
mystical guy.
Yeah.
And Daniel's very much a grounded
and
human
his-
being.
Yeah, and his presence in the show is
Still mystical.
it hangs over the whole
Yeah.
thing.
And the fact that Daniel feels like a sellout.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
of course
The fact, like, I think we must have talked about this on one of the other episodes, but like the fact that they made Daniel a car salesman, it's so
Yeah.
perfect.
yeah, it makes sense though.
Yeah, like because the writers could have done the easy thing and is like he runs a karate dojo, and he's a
Yeah.
karate teacher and that's his passion now, and that would have been fine, I guess.
And it's interesting. We probably talked about this in the original review, but it's like the roles are flipped. Where Miyagi used to be the service repairman, and
Yeah.
that's what Johnny does.
Well, yeah, I mean, Miyagi introduced Daniel and gave him a car and
Yeah,
introduced
because
him to
Miyagi
cars
had a car yard.
and so that ties into that as
No,
well.
but it's fun. It's like Johnny has the role Miyagi did when.
Oh, Johnny's the maintenance man.
Yeah, I
yeah.
just
No,
thought that
I
was
thought you were
kinda
talking.
funny.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no.
Daniel ties in with the cars, and
Daniel's the
Johnny's a
rich
maintenance
guy.
man. Yeah,
So kind of the roles were
Yeah.
swapped.
yeah.
Speaking of now, Ralph Macchio's hair. I wasn't aware of this.
I didn't hear this until you
I,
just
I
told
was,
me
I
before
was
we
on the
started.
Twitter, as I do sometimes, and people were talking about Ralph Macchio's hair in the show. Does Daniel LaRusso wear a wig or a hairpiece? If you look at photos,
I
in
never
the show,
noticed.
You are now.
Oh yeah. When I
I've
watch the
ruined it
show,
for everyone in the studio.
No,
Yeah.
if he does, it's very well done. Because
Yeah.
I can't
Is
say
it-
I can't say I looked at him when I.
Well, yeah, I never
No,
noticed.
once
I never
once you
thought
see
about
it, right, once you've been told, and you go
You
look at a
can't unsee
photo,
it.
you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
So all the listeners, I'm sorry.
What do
He
you
may
think?
or may not have a hairpiece.
What do you think, Alan?
I don't know. Alan's on the phone right this minute.
No, I'm looking at pictures
I
of
speak-
Ralph Macchio. The one where he's got the nice comb over action. That's where I could believe. I've
Yeah.
seen a couple of toupees in my time, and in this one I could believe that this is purchased rather than homegrown.
Yeah, it's a bit iffy. But anyway, you do what you
Yeah.
got to do. Like,
No,
I'm not-
yeah.
that's not. It's not.
Having a bald Daniel
No.
would be
Jarring.
actually. Now that I think about it, having him like balding would kind of fit
Well-
in his character. Oh, but it also fits in his character to be a little bit vain at this
Yeah.
point
Yeah.
in his life.
Yeah, because he especially has that,
But, I mean,
that
like
minor
it,
celebrity.
his hair has no real impact.
I mean,
on the
yeah,
show.
I don't know why we're talking about this. This is a waste
Yeah.
of time. But what I want when Callum was talking about failure and all that, can I go on my Star Wars rant?
Go
Sure.
for it.
All right. So we talked about Cobra Kai season 1 and 2 quite a while ago. How
when it was on YouTube.
It was the best Star Wars story since the originals. Like it just gets it. You got the guy trying to live up to his master, trying to teach a younger generation, kind of handing down, You know, it made
yeah.
perfect sense. All the characters fell into place. Daniel was Luke. It made so much sense. And the third season of Cobra Kai is more so than the first 2 seasons, like 110% Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like, Kreese goes full Emperor Palpatine. He's just like,
Yeah.
Let
it flow through you.
Yeah, let the anger flow through you. Like, and, you know, Robbie does a heel turn and turns to the dark side, and Daniel is dealing with failure, and Johnny's dealing with failure. And...
So we're at the Revenge of the Sith.
No. We're at whereas the Last Jedi failed to make Luke. They tried to do the whole like Luke is a failure and he's turned his back on the Force and whatever, and they failed miserably.
Yeah, what they did.
This is the perfect example.
What they did in Star Wars was they made Luke say, "Well, I failed, so now I'm going to burn it all down."
No, but
yeah.
you could make the semi-argument that seasons 1 and 2 of Cobra Kai are more like A New Hope. This building. It's not Kreese there in the background making machinations.
No. What I'm saying is
and then
like
season
we're
3
just talking about the structure. The
structurally,
Star Wars.
yeah, like and character-wise, like season 1 and 2 made so much sense, like as the Force Awakens sort of arc.
We're not comparing
like,
them to any one movie.
No, but I'm saying in the original trilogy,
if the original,
are we moving into a Revenge of the Sith type situation?
No. What I'm saying is, if the original 3 karate movies are the original Star Wars trilogy, and the Cobra Kai seasons 1, 2, and 3 are the sequel trilogy, and 2 definitely started this, but 3 pushes it in further with what Callum was saying.
Yeah,
like with the whole like Luke was a failure and he gave up and all that. Like the way Daniel deals with his failure by going to Japan and all that, and kind of finding
himself.
Yeah, that's how you do a Luke kind of. Not an unsure Luke. That's how you pull it off.
Especially considering he goes back and he finds the hidden wisdom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And of course, the letter is Miyagi saying how happy he is to have a student and someone who respects him. Yeah. You know, a family. And it's for example, if Luke Skywalker had found something that Yoda had written, of course he wouldn't. But
Obi-Wan,
you know, if he found something that says, you know, it's so nice that the Jedi are back. There's always room to teach, always room to grow. You know, Luke's reaction might have been, I'm not going to stop being a teacher. One fall doesn't mean like it's all done. It just means you have to get back up and try again.
Exactly.
Which is what the Cobra Kai teaches. It's like, well, if you fail, it's a lesson.
Cobra Kai?
Cobra Kai teaches if you fail, it's just a lesson. Get up, try again.
Do they teach that?
No, that's what I'm saying. It's like the moral is...
the show? Or
the show.
I thought you were talking about the dojo.
I thought you were talking about the dojo. No, I'm saying the moral of the show is that failure happens. It's how you get up and you deal with that failure that matters.
Exactly. And it does it so well, whereas The Last Jedi failed miserably at whatever it was trying to say.
And then it says Jedi suck.
Yeah.
Not only did Luke fail, Jedi suck as well.
James, those movies just failed. Period. Like
no, but that's like we talked about in our review. It's like Last Jedi was a failure of a movie about failure. You know, whereas Cobra Kai is a successful show about failure and living up to legacy and all that.
Because it's like you can humble your main character without them completely discarding everything.
Yeah.
Which is what happens to Daniel. It's like
especially like the crisis of faith or whatever. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
If you do it well.
I mean, Johnny's humbled constantly in the show.
Yeah.
And he just prefers to not acknowledge it.
Yeah. But even by this point, he's starting to kind of
yeah, exactly. It's like you don't even push it down. You just chuck it away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But by this point, he's starting to get it. Like he's starting to come around where he's like, I just can't just ignore. I can't just be cool all the time. I can't have to be responsible sometimes.
It's hard work. Just, talking from experience. Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting. Do we think season 4 is going to be darker? Because Robbie's going to be influenced by Kreese, possibly Terry Silver.
Because 3 was the quote unquote dark karate movie, dark karate kid movie, and so if 4 is like doing a bit of that, and that if they because so far. I'm trying to think. Have they used flashback footage from the... I know they've used flashback footage from the third movie, but not with Daniel in the black Cobra
No,
Kai
no,
robes?
no, they had him training with Terry Silver briefly.
Yeah.
Did they show that in season
that,
2?
But that was in the
Not-
white
yeah.
gi. He was wearing a white gi.
Yeah,
in
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That was
'Cause-
when he was like really
First
shameful.
training.
And he's like, I joined Cobra
Yeah,
Kai.
yeah.
And all the students were like,
But in season 4 they'll definitely have the flashback of him in the black robes and
Yeah.
like Terry Silver like
full Sith mode.
full Sith and like him punching the thing until it like
Till his knuckles bleed or
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah.
that then they'll do the whole dark side thing there and then he'll have to see. That's another thing. It's like Luke could have done the whole like I almost talking to his students, I almost turned to the
Well,
dark side once.
Q expanded universe.
Yeah, exactly. Cobra Kai is the perfect example of like good expanded universe stuff, or like, I could rant for hours, but
No, but I think
what I
I
mean.
think that season 4 is going to have a lot of character drama, and I think it's going to be a lot of montages because it's the build up to the finale of season 4 will be the tournament.
yeah, they've set up.
Or they
that
could do a subversion, and it'll be like the middle of the season is the tournament, and then the
because
rest of the season is the
they
fallout.
bet Kreese that
it's there's no.
Which is such 80s cheese.
Yeah,
So
so
all
the-
our problems are solved.
I like
by
the
big
I like
problem.
it.
It's brilliant, though. I
It
mean,
takes
come on.
place. It takes place in an alternate universe where karate is the most important.
It's just like,
thing.
how do we solve our problems? It's like the dojo
Karate.
ceases to exist who loses the tournament because that's our life.
So I'd be surprised if there was lots of like the kind of like guerrilla warfare you see in this season, because in the later season, of course, there's constant fights outside of dojos.
Yeah.
Like, and they get quite vicious too, like
Home
straight up
invasions.
home invasions, like stuff that cops would get
they
involved.
break Dimitri's arm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like the big thing at the end of the season is, okay, well, if you want the tournament to go ahead, no more street fighting kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
no
let's
more
keep it
no more
clean,
roving
yeah.
bands of karate warriors.
gangs.
I'm just picturing like the two one merged dojo, but the two dojos doing the whole Daniel LaRusso annoying Johnny Lawrence in the first movie. But Johnny Lawrence can't do anything back. They're like,
Yeah.
just wait for the tournament, man. Wait for the tournament.
Yeah, so I think that
Hold me back. Hold me back.
it'll be good. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a shame we have to wait so long.
Yeah, I
You know what I
mean,
mean?
with COVID, season 4, God knows when that's
Couple
going to
years
come
away, I'd
out.
say, at this point.
Yeah, at least a couple of years. Who knows? A lot of shows now just either if they're not straight up cancelled, they're just not going to come out for a long time. It's disappointing.
I mean, Cobra Kai
course,
is like the best thing to come out of.
Well, that's what I was saying with how I'm going to jump over bridge. I was talking to Nathan the other day. I'm like, 2020 was like the worst year. Everyone knows this year's not going to be much better. I'm sorry to say. The world's on fire. There's a pandemic. The politicians are trying to kill us. Like, it's just
Google search is going to get removed.
Star Wars sucks.
Is that actually
Star
legit?
Trek
It is
sucks.
legit.
Everything sucks. But I'm like, we have Cobra Kai. That's
it.
our one thing, right? And I'm like, if that goes,
That's it.
that's it. I'm done.
2020 was the pandemic. Google getting removed from Australia is 2021's issue.
If that's the biggest,
We're going to have to Bing everything, and then Microsoft's going to be like, I don't want to pay either, so we're going to have no... Get the yellow pages out. It's coming.
yeah.
We're
No,
going back to the early 90s.
We didn't even talk about one of the coolest parts of the season of Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
It's when Daniel pulls out the superhero moves at the end of the
Oh,
Oh, when he disables Kreese.
yeah.
and it's like the superhero moment.
Yeah,
Well, I
with
mean-
the
My homeboy
So cool.
Chosen looks after.
Yeah,
we
yeah.
didn't talk about that.
yeah.
Possibly my favorite scene in the whole season.
Honk.
Yeah, they had to do that.
Yeah.
Like we probably talked about it on the last season, like the honk.
I was hoping
Yeah,
Daniel
I
would
don't
do
know
that to
if we did,
Kreese.
but-
Probably not talked
But he
about it.
Yeah.
didn't.
We definitely talked
Back
about it
then.
in person.
We talked
when-
about it off air.
when-
Yeah,
the live or die man and honk.
yeah. So
Um,
good.
And one of my favorite scenes was the really awkward, tense moment when they're sitting down and Kimiko leaves.
He's, you
Oh,
can
yeah.
with this guy? Come on, man.
It's like,
Yeah, and then
I'm gonna get another drink. I will get it.
I will get it.
Oh.
Do you want a
Too
drink?
good.
I don't drink.
I loved him. I think it
Oh.
was so good.
So good.
Yeah.
So fun.
He was like, for
But
me,
he was still cool.
he was so cool. Yeah,
like he still like had
absolutely.
the fashion down and
Yeah.
like teacher chic. Like
yeah.
satchel, everything.
Yeah.
Just like he looks like me. When I go to work. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was cool. The end fights were awesome.
Like
Like
the one take
feel like
is just phenomenal.
I feel like they topped the school fight from season 2. Like the home invasion fight, and then the fight at the dojo with Kreese, the Cobra Kai, dojo. That was so awesome.
yeah, I feel like the fight scenes are better than they have any right to be
Oh,
for a TV
yeah.
show.
I thought it was
For-
a fascinating arc how they had Samantha have to learn how to conquer fear, which is just a
Another-
Star. I'll say it's just a Star Wars
again.
thing.
Ray,
Yeah.
like Ray, having no
failures.
faults.
Yeah.
And it's like having her like to have to overcome that makes so much sense for a Star Wars movie, like for a young Jedi.
Especially considering that she has like more experience than the other kids, but yet she's easily rattled in that sense.
Yeah,
Because the other ones seem to bounce back a bit quicker than her.
yeah.
And she has to.
She takes more
Her arc
to
is
heart.
to get more in tune
Yeah.
with what it means to be a karate person.
Well, she's like the original student,
Yeah.
and that was her first real exposure to actual violence.
yeah.
That's
when,
true,
When
yeah.
Tori had
'Cause
like
until-
weapons
I guess
instead of just like karate moves.
Until then, it was just a sport.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like if you were in a temple using the Force all day and it was just something you did as part of your rituals, and then you have to fight a Sith
Yeah.
for the first time.
exactly. Yeah,
And it's like, well, now I'm scared because there are people out there who
And
are
trying
going
to
to
murder
absolutely
you.
hurt you.
Yeah.
And while the show definitely glorifies karate, that's another like praising thing. I've probably talked about this in all the other reviews too. The fact that it shows the consequences of real violence.
Yeah.
Like Miguel is paralyzed, and some of
Yeah.
it is used for comedic effect.
I mean, if they really want to show the
Yeah. Oh
the-
obviously, it's not a full
Yeah.
real
Well,
life
if Dimitri
consequences of
gets
karate
his arm
violence.
broken, that's pretty graphic.
yeah, but
Robbie
it's
goes-
like
Robbie
they're not-
goes to jail?
They weren't gonna.
Yeah.
They weren't gonna keep Miguel in a wheelchair for the rest of the
no.
show, like obviously, but yeah, there's at least some consequence, a little bit anyway.
But yeah, I found this season with that pretty good. They didn't just he's in a chair for one episode and he's back. It took him a good over half the season to get back on his feet. Really,
I think this season was a bit messy because they had so much stuff to do, and Robbie was in jail half the time, and then they had like all the characters going back and forth, and Miguel had to get better. So, and then they had all the Kreese flashback stuff as well.
What did you think? What do we think about that?
I didn't mind
So-
it. I quite liked it.
So did I.
Production-wise, it was a bit cringy. Like, obviously, they didn't have the budget, which you can't blame them. Like,
Yeah.
fair enough.
I think they did well for what they had though.
They did all right. Yeah,
His backstory is interesting.
I liked it. I
I
guess they're trying to show, like, kind of with Johnny, it's like everyone, like, he's not just pure evil.
Well, I hope they don't humanize him too
Yeah,
much.
but I don't know, like, trying to humanize a character like that, I don't know why.
What I thought was interesting was he's not shown as a bad guy at the start, but he even says, I've been fighting for years. Even before he gets enlisted, he's just a fighter. He even says to the lady, "Oh, I fight all the time." And so
I don't
I'm
think he was saying, like, physically. He just meant his life has been
Struggles.
hard up until that point.
I interpreted it as physically
Because his mum
he's a big
was
dude.
mentally ill.
Yeah, well,
And he's
And
a
so-
big dude. So I'm like, it's kind of interesting if he already had a physical background.
No, if they were going to show that, they would have shown him as being the bully at the start, or they would have
Instead of
shown
he was
him
being
well,
bullied,
let's,
yeah.
let's, he did not, didn't he? End up smashing a guy.
yeah, but he was
because
bullied
they
quite
were
a
bullying
lot.
him
Yeah.
and they were pushing
And that's
the
when
girl
he says
around.
he's been fighting a long time.
Yeah, but like I said, like
I think that just means like struggling to survive.
yeah, like or fighting.
It was in the
against
context
bullies.
of a physical fight, though.
Yeah, but like he's not violent. He's saying that he might have been picked on and he might have fought back.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I
But-
think it's interesting that he has that background already built in, where
Yeah.
he's always been fighting. It wasn't like he went to Vietnam and then snapped fingers.
No,
now,
but-
now he's
but
like the karate killing
What I'm
machine.
saying is, before Vietnam, he was quote unquote good, or at least he fought for some sort of justice.
No,
if
see,
that's
I
a word.
interpreted.
There's still a little bit
no,
of justice
I-
in the Vietnam stuff,
Well,
though.
I
No,
hear-
but I mean, up until
I-
that point. After that, then he becomes evil because he loses his girlfriend
He's
or
innocent. He
whatever.
loses his innocence in Vietnam.
Yeah,
But I interpreted him as neutral to begin with. He wasn't like necessarily a good guy. He was
yeah.
just a dude.
Whatever, whether it's neutral or good. What I'm saying is they humanize him. They show him as not evil, and then after Vietnam, he becomes quote unquote evil.
Well, because purely for the fact that he's got nothing left else to live for. Like he was living for that girl.
Yeah.
She dies. Sorry for spoilers. She dies.
We should have said spoilers
Yeah.
at the start, shouldn't we?
Too late now.
Too late. But then again, when he fight, well, again, spoiler coming out. La 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 la. He has to fight his captain.
Yeah.
And then when he kills his captain, like you can just see he turns, and I was like, okay, this is where he gets the
Yeah,
taste
the
for
no
that.
mercy.
the one
yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
That's where he learns the no mercy
Yeah.
thing. And the snake pit was cool.
No, I like that. I thought
Yeah.
that was a great
The
idea.
Terry
I
Silver
think it was a
fake
bit.
out.
I didn't like that.
It was.
I
I think
do-
it was a bit
Yeah.
ham-fisted. It's how he suddenly goes from before he was trying to find a way out of that conflict where it wouldn't end in death, and then just when it's all good. He's like, nah, I'm gonna kill him. You know, it really just came
But
out of
I think
absolutely
that
nowhere.
No, I think that was the moment of like he could have gone either way, and
Yeah,
that was
in
he
terms of-
decided to
yeah.
be the bad guy. He decided to
in
show
terms
no
of,
mercy.
I think in terms of a character arc, it would have been interesting if the commanding officer just died because someone shot him.
No,
or
I think
whatever.
it's really important for
Had to
Chris
happen
to
that
have
way.
to kill him.
But
I
you
completely
you don't
think
agree. It should have been more of a
Yeah, no, but
scale.
then-
It's not
but
just like
this-
a black or
that's
white
that's
situation.
what, that's what I'm saying is then you'd have to do another whole season with more flashbacks, or you'd have to change gears all of a sudden from Johnny and Daniel and make it the Kreese show, which is different. That's why.
This is also what we're talking about with we don't want to humanize Chris too
No,
much. You don't want to
exactly.
give him too much.
Like,
grace.
how much
no,
is
I'm saying-
this gives him that evil touch. He's like,
No, no,
okay,
you can-
I've got a taste for this blood. I love it, and this is what, and
Yeah.
i.e. modern day Chris.
He can
Yeah.
be evil without it being like an on or off switch, is what I'm saying. Like, you'd have to, of
But
course,
that's what I'm
rewrite his
saying.
backstory. I'm just saying it was in a way poorly done because it's literally on or off.
But-
1 minute he's fine, then the next minute he's like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna kill my commanding
But
officer.
it was building up to that
No,
point
it was
because
building up to that because
yeah.
his commanding officer was bullying him. See, this is another thing. They needed more or none at all. I think
they should have just shown him killing innocent civilians, and then
but that's what I was
and then
going to
that
say.
blackening his soul.
That's what I was going to say is they don't show him on any mission, so they don't
Yeah.
actually show him killing Vietnamese soldiers or potentially even killing civilians during the war.
Because we all know that happened in
exactly.
Vietnam.
But so like they didn't have the budget, they didn't have the time to do that stuff, so they probably just shouldn't have done it at all. But on the other hand, they also need to set up Terry Silver, especially for people who haven't seen the third movie.
I was going to just say that.
So it's kind of like they had to do it. They did an okay job for the money they had, for the time they had.
And
You
I'm
gotta remember,
excited
there's
for
only-
Terry Silver.
There's only
Yeah.
there's only 10 episodes in the season, right? So like there's only so much
Yeah,
you can
that's
fit.
that's
and,
also true.
Yeah,
and especially
They're
with
not even hour-long episodes, so it's not
Yeah.
like they have 10 hours to work with.
yeah.
they're what 30 to 40 minutes per app.
Yeah.
It's going to be
30,
interesting
yeah.
to see what happens on Netflix because season 4 will be the first show produced under Netflix.
Well, yeah. Hopefully
So will the
that means the
runtimes get
budget.
longer? Will the budget be higher?
Probably
I
not.
Or will
I
they want to
think
keep
the-
it the same?
I think the
because it's a
runtime-
relatively inexpensive show.
Yeah, I think the runtime will stay the same or similar because that's kind of what the show.
It's probably a selling
is.
point for like if you're trying to sell a show to Netflix,
Yeah,
because of course Cobra Kai has a built-in fan base already.
yeah.
They don't have to market it too hard because people already know about it.
Mm.
And the fact that they only go for 30, 45 minutes each and there's only 10 episodes a season is also a draw.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to waste too much of Netflix's
Also,
bank.
there's not a lot of fat on the show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's not like one
Yeah.
of the many shows they've
But,
cancelled after 2 seasons because it kind of gets too expensive.
But like I hope Netflix puts more money into it. But also the thing with Netflix, as we've discussed on some older episodes, is that they make shows now purely just to get new subscribers, and
then
then
they cancel 'em.
once that job is done after a couple seasons, they cancel them.
And
The altered carbon effect.
It's sort of
And
yeah,
the higher the budget, the higher the risk of cancellation.
yeah, exactly. Again with
Sense8
Altered
effect.
Carbon, yeah.
Um,
So, like, I think this show should be safe because they knew what they were getting into when they purchased it.
and also that like the showrunners have like Netflix knows that the show has a
They
plan.
have a plan, yeah.
Yeah.
They have a
Outline.
definite goal of.
Well, that's something else we talked about. I think, like, because I'm so sick of watching shows getting cancelled like 2 seasons in. Like, it's just like you never watch a movie and then it just cuts to black before the ending.
Yeah.
Could you imagine that? Like, that's insane.
Unless you're
But
watching
how many TV shows do you watch that just don't end, don't have a proper ending? So, like, I think like Netflix, their whole approach is buy everything, release everything, make everything, see what sticks, throw it all out there, get new subscribers. I think like they need I think they need to be more on board with the show of like we have 3 seasons planned, we had 4 season
Well-
plan. You're either in or you're out
It's an interesting thing because
for the whole ride.
Netflix has recently decided that they're going to stop borrowing. They've they've acquired enough
But
capital that now they can just like see what happens with the subscriber money.
Yeah.
So if things do well for Netflix, we might see less cancellations because people don't really realize because Netflix is such a successful business. As far as I'm aware, they don't make that much profit because they borrow
No.
an aggressively high
They're
amount.
spending so much money all the time that they don't
like,
really ever.
Their finances on paper would probably look pretty murky.
yeah.
But see, here's another thing. Like, Cobra Kai was tried to be sold to Netflix before it happened, right?
They pitched it to
And
everybody.
they were like, yeah, nah.
That's another thing.
And
Is
then
the
they
creators,
they got offers from everyone, but YouTube was the one they felt understood the vision of the show the most.
That's something I want to be on a fly on the wall and during that conversation, because when the creators were shopping the show around to all the streaming services and all the channels, like apparently, like, why didn't they choose Netflix? That's weird. Like the fact that they went to YouTube and YouTube was the one that let them do what they wanted to do, and now Netflix has bought it.
That scares me.
Yeah, I'm kind of like.
And that's what I was going to say.
I think
that really worries me.
Netflix has seen how successful it was and is. So
Maybe it was a test case. Maybe it was like,
Yeah.
look, now that we've seen what
Now
it
that-
is,
yeah.
we're more
they're
comfortable.
probably
with it.
going to be hands off because they know they pretty much at this point have two golden children: Stranger Things and now, to a lesser degree, Cobra Kai.
I don't
because-
think Cobra Kai is as big as.
No, but it's got that mass fan appeal.
It's
You know
still
what I
in,
mean?
It's still in like the top 10.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like it's got that kind of people will pay a Netflix subscription to watch Cobra Kai, and they will do again. You know, I'm sure there's someone out there who eventually will pay $15 to rewatch Cobra Kai on Netflix because that's now the only place you can get it.
I'm eager. I'm a little cautious, like Matt,
Yeah.
because Netflix, anything can happen. But like the actor behind Terry Silver is like a still practicing, still athletic karate aficionado.
Well, and the
he
guy,
he can still bust a move.
yeah, and the guy who played Mike Barnes has
He's
been on Twitter as well,
Actively
being like,
hassling the producers, like let me
So,
in, let me in.
like that's definitely happening for season 4. So
Can I just say how good Martin Cove's rig is insane for his age.
Yeah.
Like, he looks incredible.
yeah.
It's, when I saw him the first time, I was like, he's barely aged.
Yeah.
That's what blew my mind. I'm
he
like,
was ancient back then.
Yes,
Really
he
was. Yeah.
no, it's crazy to think that the guys looked old for so long.
Yeah. No, but it's good that they could get him back.
Yeah, no, but
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad we live in a world
It's
where
cool
he
that
is still
it's
like
better for
a
the
fit,
show.
Like,
it's better for
cigar
the
smoking.
Yeah,
it's
zero-
better for the show that he looks the way he does because he still has that threatening.
Yeah,
He's still a big
the way,
aura.
yeah, the way he puts his like thumbs in his gi and like
Because if he was like a wizened kind of old man, didn't really have abs, he wouldn't have that threatening aura.
he's such a good bad guy.
He's genuinely terrifying, and I love it.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing.
Yeah. No, it's cool that like everyone seems to be on board coming back. Like
Yeah.
all the actors have just been like, yeah, cool, we'll come back. So that's cool.
we'll have to see what happens. That's about all the time we have for the Tuesday review tonight. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, boys.
Oh, thanks for having us.
It's a group effort as always.
Cobra Kai never dies.
Cobra Kai
Yeah.
does never, indeed,
Cobra
it does never die.
We can call it Cobra Kai Karate, but with a K.
Yeah.
You mean like
Yeah,
God.
like and share the Facebook page, the Tuesday Review. You can download the podcast, Shout Engine, iTunes, and we're now on Spotify.
Oh yeah, we're on Spotify now. Cool.
Yeah, very good.
Check
Thank
it
you.
out.
Cool
We'll
beans.
catch you later. Oh, the ad's gone.
Wait, what's our sign off? Don't say it, Alan. What's our sign off?
Adios, cousins.
Adios, cousins.